Good morning. Start out again. This morning, I'd like to inquire into the notion of freedom. I've been looking at this myself lately as my own life koan or life question, is the issue of freedom, because we all seem like we speak as if we want to be free. And in a way, Zen practice and the other practices we do here are oriented towards becoming free, or becoming more free at least. But I think sometimes we need to kind of take a step back and examine, do we really want to be free? Because if we don't really want to be free, it doesn't matter what I say up here or what kind of workshops or seminars you do, or other kinds of practices you do. So let's look for a minute at this notion of freedom and what it might entail. Now, I think if you ask the average person, do you want freedom? Do you want to be free? Oh, virtually everyone would say, yeah, I want to be free. Who doesn't want to be free, right? This country was based politically on people who wanted to be free from foreign rule, right? And we have certain freedoms, we call them freedoms, or rights, we call them rights sometimes, that are enshrined in our Bill of Rights, right, and in the Constitution. So in a political sense, but of course those also relate to a personal sense, right? And I've been looking a lot lately at what is a right. What do we have the right to, and what is more, you might say, a privilege? A lot of times people feel that they have a right to certain things, but where does that right come from? Is a piece of paper or the Bill of Rights, does that give us a right to do this or that or the other thing? The reason this relates to freedom is that in order to be really free, we have to be able to see clearly what is a choice and how we choose. And if we look at it really deeply, I think we find that choice is elusive, right? The reason that choice is elusive is that we often don't understand all of the different elements going into our choosing. Why? Why don't we understand all the elements that go into our choosing? This is a question, by the way. Anyone can answer.
Sickness, lack of money,
okay,
worries.
Okay.
Lots of people involved with their own choices and decisions.
Okay, lots of other people involved.
Sometimes I don't think I have a choice.
Sometimes you don't think you have a choice. Why?
Because my mind's telling me that I'm powerless over the situation.
Okay, your mind's telling you you're powerless over the situation.
There's a lot of things that we accept that we don't even realize that we accept them. They're just there.
Okay. So we accept a lot of things as being the case that aren't necessarily the case, right? All these things are true. But in terms of actually choosing, in terms of actually being able to make a choice, right, isn't that really what freedom is about? Isn't it about being able to choose at any given moment? Choose what? What do we need to choose in a given moment in order to be free?
Go left or right.
Anything.
Anything, right? Essentially. We have to be able to be free to choose, right? That's why on a chessboard, the queen is the most powerful piece, because the queen can move in any direction. But what prevents us from doing that? That was my question. What prevents us from seeing that we have a choice? Now, people mention things like money and other people, but is that really it? situation dependent.
Other factors.
What?
Other factors are emotions, our thoughts.
Fear. It's our belief
delusion.
that we
Okay.
can't.
Okay. We have a lot of ideas about what choices we can make and not make, and they're based upon all kinds of things, right? One might be the amount of money we have, or it might be what our husband or wife or partner wants, or a child. But a lot of it has to do with our beliefs, right, about what is possible to choose, number one. Also, no one's mentioned this, but it was kind of what I was getting at, or wanted to get at. Also, there's the issue of unconscious behaviors of ours. Many different behaviors are unconscious to us. In other words, they're not in our conscious mind as a choice. We don't see it as a choice because we've engaged the reactive part of the mind that is acting unconsciously. When we're acting unconsciously, we're not acting from a position of conscious choice because we are unconscious by its definition, right? Think about this for a minute. Say I have a choice to make. But the situation that is engendering this choice is triggering all kinds of unconscious material, all kinds of unconscious behavior. Am I going to be able to make a free choice at that point? Not truly free, right? Probably not. I'm probably going to make a choice based on delusion, what we call delusion in Zen. Delusion is not idiocy. It's not stupidity. It's simply not seeing what is. It's not seeing what is. It could be a black snake and we think it's a black hose. Or it could be a black hose and we think it's a black snake. Both of them have consequences, right? Both of them are important. They have different functions. Both of them need to be addressed in a different way. Say we're stepping over it. Stepping over a hose, stepping over a black snake could be very different, right? This is kind of a gross example, but it's true. That if we cannot see what is, free of delusion, then we aren't going to be able to make, in many instances, a correct choice. Now, what I mean by correct is not correct based on some book somewhere or some idea that we have, but correct based on the situation. For instance, a poisonous snake, unless we want to be bit, we need to treat in a certain way. A hose, we need to treat in a different way. But we have to see it's a hose or a snake. Now, it's relatively easy in most instances to tell a hose from a snake, unless we're not being conscious. If we're just blundering around, not being observant and not watching where we're stepping, for instance, we might step in that fire ant mound or on that snake. You know, in Florida, we have fire ants. I found this out very rapidly after moving here. I had an injured foot from an auto accident, and guess what fire ants like to do? Go for injuries. They're smart. They ain't so dumb, those little ants. If you're intruding on their mound, the first thing they do is bite where you're already injured. Pretty smart for an ant. And they did.
Oh, wow.
Because I didn't know that in Florida, if you're ever walking anywhere, look down. Unless you're on concrete. Even then, sometimes you have to look down. But usually, if you're on sandy soil, you better look down when you're walking. Don't stand in any one place too long without looking down. You don't have to do that in most parts of the country, but here you do. So being observant, right? Being mindful. Being mindful of what? What?
Now.
What does that mean?
Surroundings.
Surroundings. In
Environment.
other words,
Present.
Yeah, present moment.
everything, right?
Exactly.
Now, can we ever be mindful of everything?
No.
No.
No, of course not.
I'm not sure what Saturn's doing right now.
In the sky. So we have to be mindful